Gloria Steinem's story is not only about a woman who became a voice for millions, but also about a girl who faced difficulties most children could never imagine. She was born on March 25, 1934, in Toledo, Ohio, inside a trailer that her father drove around for work. Her father made a living selling antiques, so the family was always moving. Her mother, Ruth, had been a successful newspaper reporter, but suffered from serious mental health problems. She often heard voices, believed the radio was talking to her, and could not manage daily life. When Gloria was still very young, her father left the family, and Gloria was left to care for her mother in an unsafe and broken-down house. She did the shopping, cooking, and cleaning while still trying to attend school. Money was always short, and her life was full of fear and uncertainty. These early years taught her two important lessons: that women often became trapped because of money, and that silence about problems only made them worse. Those lessons stayed with her for life, shaping the person she would later become. Even though her childhood was unstable, Gloria was determined to study and find a better path. At 16, she moved to Washington, D.C., to live with her older sister and finish high school. She worked babysitting jobs and cashier shifts to pay for her food and bus fares. Despite the stress, she did well in school and later earned a scholarship to Smith College, one of the best women's schools in the United States. At Smith, she studied government and quickly became active in student debates. She was never afraid to question authority and even mocked Senator McCarthy's anti-communist hearings with a student play that gained national attention. After graduating with honors in 1956, she planned to travel, but her plans took an unexpected turn when she found herself pregnant in 1957. At that time, abortion was illegal in both the US and Britain. While in London, a kind doctor helped her secretly terminate the pregnancy, asking only that she live her life freely and honestly. This private experience deeply affected her, but she kept it a secret for many years. It became one of the driving forces behind her later activism for women's rights, though she did not speak about it publicly until 1971. After her abortion, Gloria went to India on a fellowship, where she spent 2 years living simply and studying women in villages. She walked long distances, lived on little money, and saw women who worked extremely hard for almost no pay. Despite their poverty, many of these women gave land or food to others who had even less. Gloria realized that real change did not always come from powerful politicians, but often started in small communities, where women supported one another. These experiences opened her eyes to class differences, gender roles, and social injustice. She later said that her time in India helped her understand ideas that would much later be called intersectionality, the way different forms of inequality are connected. Returning to the United States, she struggled to find steady work as a journalist. Editors often judged her by her looks rather than her ideas, and many powerful men offered jobs in exchange for private favors. She refused, but stayed silent, fearing her career would be destroyed. It was only decades later, at age 91, that she openly admitted how deeply those experiences had hurt her. This silence, and her choice to finally break it, became one of the most personal secrets she ever shared. In the early 1960s, Gloria finally began getting noticed in journalism. She published articles in major magazines and in 1963 went undercover as a Playboy bunny. For weeks, she worked at the Playboy Club, wearing the costume, serving drinks, and facing the daily humiliations that came with the job. She secretly took notes and later published a shocking expose showing how poorly the women were treated, how little they were paid, and how customers were allowed to touch them freely. The article caused a media storm and forced the club to change some of its rules, but it also hurt her reputation. Many editors dismissed her as a woman who was more of a performer than a serious writer. Even so, Gloria kept writing, and in 1969 she attended a meeting that changed her life. In a church basement, women shared their painful abortion stories. For the first time, Gloria spoke publicly about her own experience in London. That moment marked her transformation from a reporter into a feminist activist. She later described it as her big click, the moment she could not turn back from the fight for women's rights. In 1971, Gloria helped launch Ms. Magazine, a publication that gave women's voices a platform like never before. The preview issue sold out almost instantly, proving there was a huge audience hungry for stories about women's real lives. By 1972, Ms. became its own magazine, publishing bold articles about abortion, workplace discrimination, motherhood, and even female genital mutilation, a subject almost no American media had dared to touch. The magazine faced boycotts from advertisers and criticism from conservatives, but it grew quickly and became a symbol of the women's liberation movement. Around the same time, Gloria was speaking at rallies across the country, addressing thousands of women with a mix of humor and determination. She made complicated issues simple, holding up job ads to show how women were paid less than men for the same work, or using the phrase, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle," to challenge old ideas about marriage. Her activism brought women together and helped shift how the media portrayed feminism. She was no longer just a journalist, she had become one of the most visible leaders of a growing revolution. Gloria's rise was not without challenges. She faced criticism for her ties to a student group that had once received CIA funding, and some people doubted her seriousness as an activist because of her glamorous appearance. She also struggled with health issues, including breast cancer, in 1986. Which she spoke about openly to encourage women not to hide their illnesses. Despite these difficulties, she continued to lead. She helped start the National Women's Political Caucus, trained women to run for office, and pushed for the Equal Rights Amendment. In 1977, she helped organize the National Women's Conference in Houston, where thousands of women created a powerful plan for gender equality. Though she often faced hecklers and opponents, she remained calm, using humor and wit to silence critics. Her work with Ms. Magazine and other organizations made clear that she would not be stopped by fear or opposition. Every setback only seemed to make her stronger, and every criticism gave her another chance to explain why feminism mattered. Many people were surprised when Gloria got married in 2000 at the age of 66. She married David Bale, the father of actor Christian Bale, in a ceremony led by a Native American chief. The couple described themselves as partners rather than husband and wife, and they lived independent lives in different cities. Sadly, David passed away just 3 years later. Gloria called their marriage the happiest political act of her life, showing that love could be chosen freely at any age. She also had other relationships throughout her life, including with civil rights leader Franklin Thomas and filmmaker Mike Nichols, but she always kept her independence. Her personal life, like her public work, showed that women did not have to follow traditional paths to be fulfilled. In 2013, she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama, who praised her for turning outrage into action. Even in her later years, she kept traveling, speaking, and writing. Refusing to slow down, for decades, Gloria kept some of her deepest struggles private. She rarely spoke about the sexual harassment she faced as a young journalist, fearing it would damage her career. She also kept quiet about being sexually abused as a child, only revealing it in her memoir, My Life on the Road, in 2015. These painful experiences explained why she kept lights on at night and why she fought so fiercely for women's safety. At 91, she finally admitted that silence had been a survival tool. But she wanted women to know that speaking out was even more powerful. By sharing these secrets so late in life, she reminded the world that it is never too late to tell the truth. Today, even though she spends more time at home, she uses social media to continue her activism. When the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022, Gloria used her platforms to guide people on how to fight back, offering resources and encouragement to younger generations. Her voice still reaches millions, proving that age has not dimmed her influence. Gloria Steinem's life is a story of courage, persistence, and hope. From a child struggling in a broken home to a leader who changed history, she has shown what one determined person can do. She carried painful secrets for decades about abuse, harassment, and choices she was forced to make, but when she finally revealed them, they gave her story even more power. She helped women see that their private struggles were political, and that change begins when we speak openly about our lives. At 91, her message is clear. Feminism is not just about laws or protests. It is about freedom, dignity, and the ability to live without fear. Her journey proves that even when the fight is long, voices joined together can create revolutions. When Gloria Steinem stepped into activism during the late 1960s and early 1970s, the world around her was already changing. The civil rights movement was demanding racial equality. Anti-war protesters were filling the streets against the Vietnam War, and younger generations were questioning traditional values. Into this climate came the women's liberation movement, and Gloria quickly became one of its most recognizable faces. Unlike some activists who spoke with anger, Gloria had a unique style. She was calm, witty, and approachable. She used humor to disarm critics, once joking, "Some of us are becoming the men we wanted to marry." That type of statement made headlines because it was simple, memorable, and powerful. She did not just talk to elite audiences, she traveled across the country, attending rallies, college gatherings, and union meetings, listening to women's stories and encouraging them to fight for their rights. To many women, she was not just a leader. She was a friend who understood their struggles. At the time, women were facing discrimination in almost every part of life. Job ads were divided into help wanted, male, and help wanted female. Banks often refused to give women credit cards without a husband's permission. Even in schools, women were told to become teachers or nurses rather than doctors or lawyers. Gloria challenged all of this by pointing out the unfairness in everyday examples. She once held up newspapers during speeches, showing how men were always listed for better-paying jobs. She knew that statistics alone might bore people, but simple images made the injustice impossible to ignore. Her ability to explain feminism in plain language helped millions understand why it was necessary. One of Gloria's most lasting contributions was Ms. Magazine. At a time when women's magazines mostly focused on beauty tips, recipes, and how to please husbands, Ms. dared to cover topics that were considered too controversial. The magazine's first preview issue in 1972 included a list of 53 famous women who admitted to having abortions. An act that was both risky and revolutionary because abortion was still illegal in most states. By publishing their names, these women broke the silence around an issue that had been hidden for too long. The cover of that issue, showing the Hindu goddess Kali juggling household items like a baby and a typewriter, became iconic. Panzias also published articles on domestic violence, sexual harassment, and reproductive rights subjects that mainstream media ignored. For example, it ran first-person stories from women who had been abused by their partners, something few publications dared to touch. Many readers wrote letters saying that, for the first time, they felt less alone. Even though advertisers tried to boycott the magazine and critics accused it of destroying families, Ms. survived because women kept buying it. By the mid-1970s, it had hundreds of thousands of subscribers. The magazine did not just reflect the women's movement, it fueled it, giving women information and confidence to fight back in their own lives. Beyond speeches and magazines, Gloria also worked for political change. She co-founded the National Women's Political Caucus in 1971 with leaders like Shirley Chisholm and Bella Abzug. This group encouraged women to run for office and trained them in campaigning. At the time, very few women held political power. In fact, in the early 1970s, only 16 women were serving in the entire U.S. Congress. Gloria believed that real change required women to be at the decision-making table. She also strongly supported the Equal Rights Amendment era, which was designed to guarantee equal rights under the law regardless of sex. The amendment passed Congress in 1972 but faced opposition from conservative activists like Phyllis Schlafly, who argued that it would harm families. Gloria and other feminists campaigned hard for it. But despite winning wide support, the era ultimately fell short of ratification. Even though the amendment did not pass, the campaign itself educated millions about gender inequality. Another key moment in Gloria's activism was the Supreme Court's 1973 decision in Roe v. Wade, which legalized abortion nationwide. Gloria celebrated the